Hello and welcome back to the Better Man podcast. We've been on a hiatus for the last few months and picking back up with interviewing people from within the Manflow Yoga community. And this is going to be a conversation just going through someone's fitness journey. So you'll see what it's like. We're going to get started, get straight into it. I've got Steve Tamzila here from Pittsburgh. He's 61 years old and he's been doing Manflow Yoga since 2018. So Steve, thanks for joining me for the conversation.
Yeah, my pleasure. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, and I don't want this to be, this blatant promotion of Manful Yoga. It's more so I want to understand how you got started with taking your fitness more seriously and just kind of how that evolved, over the course of a few years. So, do you want to take me back to when you were, and maybe sometime shortly before you found Manful Yoga or before you started looking for something like Manful Yoga? And what was something in your life that happened that made you realize, okay, I have to do things differently? Or was there a moment like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said earlier, I started in with Man and Flow Yoga in 2018. But prior to that, I was winding down my career with a local bank here after about 35 years,
Mm,
and just had a typical, desk job, computer on all day. I didn't really pay a lot of attention to my fitness or my dietary habits.
okay.
And I just knew that at the time, in my mid 50s, I needed to do something. And I wasn't quite sure what that something was because sporadically had joined a gym here and there earlier, like in my 30s and 40s, and that
Hmm.
never really stuck. Um, and I just wasn't consistent. And I said, I need to make just a life change, basically.
Mm,
So the first thing I did was I just started to incorporate walking and hiking
okay.
life. And that was, I'll say, a game changer because it got me started on my path of a journey. And
Hmm.
this day it's a journey, and you'll see how that all comes to fruition as we get closer to where we are today. But I knew I needed to do more, and I didn't want to be in my mid 50s. I was not looking for going to a gym to lift weights or pump
Hmm.
iron or become ripped or anything like that. That's just not where I was in my life. But I knew that from reading a lot of information online that strength training is important,
Hmm.
especially as we get older. So I said, all right, what would be good for that? And I kept seeing yoga, and I went to a couple of those. I think they call them hot yoga classes, where like
Hmm.
they literally turn up the furnace or the heaters,
Right.
and you sweat. And I despised it. I absolutely
Okay.
hated it. Not that I don't mind sweating. That's not the issue. It just was not comfortable.
Mm,
Um, and so, but at the time, I was also the only guy in the class, and
hmm.
so I was like, all right, this isn't for me. And then I just Googled and came across Manflow Yoga. Um, Looked into it, checked out a lot of your free YouTube content, and was just really fixated with it because it was everything I was looking for. And so I started
So
to.
were you searching online yoga? Were you searching yoga for men, or what was the specific search that you were looking?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think it exactly was yoga for men.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
and because I didn't know if that was a thing or not, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I just knew that going to that hot yoga class with all women was just not what I was looking for, and um, I wasn't in their age group. I was of a different sex, and so that just wasn't what I was looking for, and so that's why
Mm,
I decided to check out yoga for men,
hmm.
um, and came across your program, uh, and so started to incorporate. And I did this very slowly, and I did that deliberately and on purpose. Um, in fact, to this day, this is still a journey. I'm not looking for a quick fix. I'm not looking for something miraculous to happen overnight. That's unrealistic, and that's just not who I am.
Hmm.
And so I started to incorporate um, the yoga concepts of your program, Um, in addition to continuing my journey of hiking, there's a lot of great places in Pittsburgh and Western Pennsylvania to go hiking. I have a friend who loves to hike as well, so he and I go to this day on hiking on a regular basis.
Hmm. Cool. So you were doing yoga. You started. So you started not a quick fix. So you really eased into it. So when you first started, how often were you doing it?
I would say at first I was trying to be regimented and following
Hmm.
uh, certain of the programs where I wanted to focus on certain areas like my shoulders or my knees, things
Hmm.
on my body that were just general aches and pains. I had nothing chronic, thankfully.
Hmm.
Still don't to this day. Um, so I was looking for programs that could either be an overall body um, workout
Hmm.
and then incorporating specifics like hip and knee, you know, back of the shoulder for you when you're hunched over on your computer or on your phone. So things of
Yeah.
that nature. And then I would follow those programs religiously,
Mm.
mostly to get the knowledge base because my long term goal was okay, I want to use whatever program I'm using, whether it's Manflow yoga or anything else that I might incorporate. I want to learn it, but then I want to tweak it to my own needs.
Mm.
So then what I started doing, and which I do to this day, I don't necessarily have to log into my account to see a program. I've done this enough now that I know what I want to focus on and I know how to do the positions. And if I
Hmm.
need a refresher to make sure that like, okay, am I my knees or my ankles positioned properly? Are my feet in the right direction? Then yeah, I'll use it, your program as a reference to
Hmm.
refresh myself of proper technique. Other
Got
than
it.
that, when I'm doing something, and if I'm whether it's going out hiking or doing yard work, I will make sure I stretch properly before I do any of those things. So I
Hmm.
use the program now more generically rather than focused on a program or a routine or an area of the body.
Okay. Cool. I think that's the ultimate goal is to get people to the point where they know what to do to take care of themselves. And like you said, sometimes going back into the members area if they want to learn a new workout or learn some new stuff or just refresh things. But I think it's great that you've gotten to the point where you've learned how to take care of your body. So my question would be, when did you first start noticing that things were working?
Oh, probably within a couple of weeks, maybe even sooner, especially when I was focusing on the areas that were giving me trouble,
Mm,
which was predominantly my knees and at the time, my shoulders.
mm,
And
mm,
so those areas now, with what else I've incorporated into my life, which we'll get to that as we progress throughout this podcast here, um, I can now focus on other areas. So my knees are great. Like I can bend over without I can squat without any pain. I never used to do that before. I would always be having to hold on to something to push myself up.
mm,
I can now do it without any um, cruxes, if you will, um,
mhm,
and it's been great. Um, so now I can focus on things that are of an issue to me, which is right now elbows, which
hmm,
as I'm doing some weight training, which we can talk about in a minute, how I've incorporated that
yeah.
into a more structured routine. When I do certain exercises, my elbows really flare up. So now I'm looking to see what can I do to
Mm,
improve that. So again, having your resource as a data bank, if you will, to I can go in and say, okay, I now what can I do for my elbows? What
mhm,
um, stretches, positions, yoga routines can I do to strengthen my wrists and my elbows? So that's kind of how I'm using it now.
yeah.
As as,
So
as I get my overall body into where I want it to be.
yeah. So going back to when you were first starting out, you noticed that within a couple of weeks that, your knees, your shoulders started feeling better.
Mhm.
Was there was there something that, was there a certain strategy that you used, or was there something that you that enabled you to be able to do those workouts consistently? Or was there a particular motivation that you reminded yourself of in order to be consistent? Because getting started is one thing, but actually sticking with something is another. And so I think for a lot of people who are listening who might be struggling with being able to be motivated and stay
Mhm.
consistent, you know they're going to want to know, like, okay, well, how do I do that? So I'm curious for you, what did you do that enabled you to be consistent?
Yeah. The first thing I did was I followed the routines religiously,
Mm,
focusing really on, and this is one of the many things I love about the program is proper body positioning and technique. So I really, really focused on where I'm going to strengthen my knees and my shoulders, for example, following those routines to the letter of the law
mm,
and really focusing on, okay, making sure, like if I'm doing like a lunge or something, making sure your foot is in the right position, that it's not turned one way or the other. So my
mhm,
motivation for me was, and this is kind of how I view my life in general. If I'm going into something new, I want to learn from the experts how to do it properly.
mm,
Then take into account, okay, now let's bring my body into the picture. And do I have to tweak anything to make sure that I'm doing it for myself, but at the same time keeping the proper technique? And so my motivation from when I was starting it and I started to notice a change in a couple of weeks was being consistent.
mm,
My motivation for being consistent was that every day I felt a smidge bit better.
mm,
And if I had a day where I fell off or I didn't do it and I noticed a difference, that was my motivating factor to get back on track. Because
mm,
it doesn't take a long time to do these. That's another one. That's another thing I love about the program. None of these are like, an hour long or whatever. Like being
mhm,
in a gym or trying to just do one routine for 10, 15, 20 minutes. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something to do that is quick but efficient at the same time.
mhm,
So as I started to feel better, my motivation for guys out there who would be in this position, you just got to be consistent. And don't cut yourself down. Don't feel like, okay, if I can't get it the first time, I give up.
mhm,
Let your body get accustomed to these new positions, these new routines, and it will come.
mhm,
That's the one thing that I know a lot of people have a problem with patience, but I
mhm,
think patience is a virtue in this case where you are really trying to keep on track. So even if you just do something so small that it will make a difference, that's been my motivating factor. And
mhm.
then seeing how I felt week after week um, just gave me the motivation to keep on doing it.
Yeah. So what were some of the frustrations that you noticed as you were getting started?
Um, oh, that I that I literally couldn't do what you were doing on screen.
Mhm,
Um, and then it took me like a week or two to realize, okay, I'm not Dean's age. I don't have Dean's body. I haven't been in the condition that Dean is currently in. So don't beat myself up. I can't be like that. What I can do is my best
mhm,
in terms of proper technique. Because there would be times I would just try to do something. I'm like, all right, this doesn't feel right. What am I doing wrong? I'll look at one of the videos. Oh, yeah, I didn't have my shoulder in the right position, or I didn't have it on the wall correctly,
mm,
or I didn't have my feet in the right position. Um, and once I made those tweaks, it made all the difference. Um, and so those are the kind of the things that I build upon. Even to this day, I still do that
mhm,
when I'm trying something new, um, whether it's through yoga or strength training.
mhm,
Um, And so that's what keeps me motivated. The fact that I'm feeling better, because let's see, it's been what, 6 years since I've been on this journey,
Yeah.
um, and it's a journey that I will be on for the rest of my life. Uh,
Mhm.
and at the very beginning, my focus was to lose weight.
Mhm.
Then I realized, all right, I'm just a big guy. I'm not necessarily morbidly obese. I'm 6'1". I have a big frame, and what I want to do is just feel better.
Mm.
Logic tells me if I do these things, I'll lose weight, which I have.
Mhm.
Have I lost a ton of weight? No, but that wasn't my goal.
Mm.
Initially, it was. Then I realized I just want to live a really good quality of life.
Mhm.
And movement, as well, I forget, I don't know who it was that told me this. It was one of my gym buddies. Motion is lotion.
Yeah.
Um, and so if you feel better, whether it's through your body physically or through your mind mentally, the weight will come off if you
Mhm.
keep consistent. But now that's not my goal.
Mm.
So I don't get on the scale. Maybe once a month I'll get on the scale because I don't care about the number.
Mhm.
What I care about is the results of how I feel.
Yeah. I think that's important. I think that's a great way to look at it. So just how much weight have you lost, or where were you, and where are you now?
I think at my heaviest, I was about at 275,
Okay.
277, something in the 270s range.
Yeah.
And I'm in the 250s.
Okay. And you
And
feel a lot better.
oh, I mean, I know 250 sounds like a lot, but I'm also 6'1" and I have a big frame. And I know that unless someone tells me otherwise, I think muscle weighs more than fat. I
Mhm.
do a lot of hiking. My legs are huge, but they're huge muscularly.
Mm.
And I know some of the biggest muscles, if I'm not mistaken, are in your legs, especially
Yeah.
from the knees up to the hips.
Yeah.
They're really strong. Um,
Mhm.
and so I know that that comes with, you know, more muscle, more weight. Um,
Mhm.
but it's a switch off. I'm losing fat and replacing it with muscle.
Right. I think that's an important distinction to make because not everyone realizes that when you are improving body composition, you might not necessarily be losing weight. So, you could get 1 month into a workout program and weigh yourself and realize, oh, I've only lost a pound. But yeah, but how much fat have you lost? How much muscle have you gained? So,
Yeah.
that's an important distinction. So, my next question kind of goes to, where did it go from there? So, you said you followed the program religiously. So, were you doing it 3 times a week, 5 times a week? How
Oh,
often?
probably closer to five.
Okay,
Yeah.
so five times a week.
Mhm.
When did you start? When did that lead into? Okay, now I'm going to start taking my nutrition more seriously,
Mhm.
or I'm going to start doing this thing, or how did it kind of progress from there?
Yeah. So the one thing I did, if I joined your program in early 2018, and at the end of 2019, you had your very first inaugural "Be the Better You" weekend,
Hmm.
um, which I came to, the first
Yeah,
one,
I
and
remember.
it was it was life changing. And I'm not saying that just because we're doing this podcast. I'm being completely candid and honest here. I wasn't sure what to expect. I just knew I needed to up my game. And I think I needed to be in the company of other men who were in the same, struggling with the same issues or similar
Yeah.
issues. And it was not short of a life exchanging experience because I've gained so much more knowledge at that weekend in terms of nutrition, in terms of strength training, and the things that you had incorporated into that weekend. We went to some guy's gym. I can't remember their names.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Jesse.
yeah, and so it gave me the motivation to say, okay, let me take this to the next level.
Hmm.
Let me look at my eating habits and let me look at what I can do from what I like from a strength training perspective because I didn't want to just go to a gym and start lifting weights. That is just not who I am.
Hmm.
So Though that weekend led me to the next chapter. So then going into 2020, the pandemic hits. Um, and then I'm really, everyone's isolated. So I'm like, all right, at least I can still do my yoga. At least I
Right.
can still go hiking and walking outside.
Yeah.
So that was good. Um,
Mhm.
in a lot of ways, I did more of that during the pandemic because there wasn't much else to do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, good things come from bad experiences in the world,
Mhm.
and I consider that to be one of them. So then I started focusing on both nutrition and strength training.
Mhm.
That led me to where I am now, in that I recently joined through my insurance carrier a nutritional program that's going to it's a nutrition and wellness program. It lasts 1 year.
Mhm.
I have monthly check-in calls. It focuses on something that I've always dabbled in, and that
Mhm.
is eating more like a Mediterranean type diet.
Okay.
Um, that coupled with it is insane. It was became insanely uh, knowledgeable to me of how much we eat in terms of quantity in the United States
Yeah.
compared to the rest of the world,
Right.
especially Europe.
Mhm.
What is a portion size? I never thought about that before.
Hmm.
I never thought about, and I'm also not big into counting calories. Just like I'm not big into like lifting weights, I'm not big into counting calories. But I understand there is a dynamic between carbs and fat and protein.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like, my observation based on what you said so far is that all of the things that you're doing, all of these changes that you're making, you always did them in a way that you thought it wouldn't be too challenging to implement. You did it in a way where you're like, I want to do this and I will do this. But if it's something that is just doesn't appeal to me, I'm not going to force myself to do it. And I think that's why, I'm curious for you. Does it feel like, you've had less of a less resistance to it because of that?
Yeah, great question. What I discovered with this was, don't get boggled down in all the minutia of detail with these programs.
Hmm.
Implement change slowly. And I can't, in my life, and I think this could apply to a lot of folks, especially guys who are around my age who are struggling. Don't take it as a journey. Don't force yourself to do this all at one time, to be it to the letter of the law, because you'll get discouraged
Hmm.
and most likely you'll drop out. So, small steps, look at it from a journey perspective, and just make small changes on a regular basis, and that will add up. Um,
Hmm.
I think I think with age comes a different perspective. If I was younger, I probably would want to say, okay, I need to see results right now.
Hmm.
That's just not where I am in my early 60s. And so, what I would say to folks out there, whether it's nutrition or strength or yoga, whatever you're doing, start out small and make it a journey.
Hmm.
I think are the biggest things that have really helped me along this path. So, I'll give you an example. With my nutrition, a lot of people have a sweet tooth, and that can be,
Hmm.
and a lot of people fall into that boat. I'm the exact opposite. I don't like sugar. I don't like sweets. My problem is I have not a sweet tooth, but a savory tooth.
Hmm.
So I love potato chips and pretzels, anything salty, anything savory.
Hmm.
So that's where I needed to cut back and make healthier choices. So eating healthy nuts and grains instead of chips.
Hmm.
I'm getting that same satisfaction from a savory standpoint
Hmm.
without all of the additional fat,
Hmm.
or making things on my own rather than buying processed foods. That's the other big thing. Dean, you probably know this from all your research. America is so much a processed foods country as
Mhm.
opposed to a natural foods country like it is in
Mhm.
Europe.
Yeah.
Everything is so overly processed, has so much chemical in it. So that's when I decided, okay, let me make these small changes. Let me swap out healthier options for less healthier. But
Mhm.
again, do it as a path. Have I stopped eating potato chips completely? No. Have I cut back significantly? Yes. Um, so that's been a game changer for me as well. And
Mhm.
don't beat yourself up. If you have a day or a snack or an evening or a weekend with the guys, whatever, don't beat yourself up if you, I don't want to say fall off the wagon, but I'll use that analogy.
Mhm.
Don't beat yourself up. You did it, acknowledge it, move on,
Mhm.
and just
Yeah.
get back on track. But don't beat yourself up over it. Because again, you'll become more depressed and then you will not want to continue.
Right.
So, those things I never would have thought that in my younger days, uh,
Mm.
to think like that.
Yeah. I think you pointed out a lot of really helpful mindsets. Things like looking at it as a journey, not wanting instant results, but looking at it as a process, doing things in a way where it feels right to you, where it feels manageable. I think that also that last part of what you just mentioned, which my brain stopped working, which, what was it again? It was really good.
Oh, about this, I don't know about the swapping out of good things for bad things, or
No, oh, the not getting down on yourself,
oh yeah,
not beating yourself up. I
yes,
think that's so important.
yeah,
Avoiding the shame-based motivation
yes,
and instead focusing on, like, how
right,
can I learn from it? And also, just taking alternatives to that. So
yeah.
I think you pointed out a lot of really good habits. So I want to move on to our kind of our rapid fire question section.
Mhm.
But is there anything else that you'd want to mention
Yeah, the other
before we
big
go on?
thing, yeah, perfect segue. The other big thing that I recently incorporated, and I only started this year. I think I joined in March. I'm on a bocce league here in Pittsburgh, and
Fun.
love playing bocce.
Yeah.
And Pittsburgh's a big. There's a lot of Italians in Pittsburgh, so it's a big sport in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
So I've joined a bocce league, and I've been doing that for years. And then a subgroup of our team of 8 goes to this gym, and I'm like, and they're saying, Steve, you should come, you should check it out.
Hmm.
The trainer is really good. It's not what you think. It's not like it was back when you were in your 30s and 40s. So I decided to give it a try, and I was blown away because the guy's name's Chris. The guy who does this, he really focuses on you as an individual and not just everyone in the group doing the same thing.
Mm.
So I go now 3 days a week, um, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's a 1 hour class. Each of those 3 days focuses on a different section of your body. And I'm using not necessarily weights, although there are some things I'm using dumbbells and free weights,
Mhm.
but I'm not sitting on a bench pumping iron. Um,
Mhm.
I'm doing things like carrying weights to
Mhm.
just build stamina. I'm doing a lot of strength training just using my own body. So, like,
Mhm.
I didn't want to sit down on the floor and do crunches, or I didn't want to lay on my back and do sit ups.
Yeah.
So now I'm using them with straps on the wall. I didn't know you could do these things or use the wall instead of, and I know
Yeah.
some of your videos show that as well.
Mhm.
Bottom line is I started at 2 days a week. I then increased it to 3 days a week. It's been a game changer.
Yeah.
The one nice thing is it's early in the morning, so 3 days a week it gets me up earlier than I normally would.
Mhm.
Um, I'm what I would call right now. Keep saying temporarily retired, but um, I'm not closing the door on my career yet. But I've
Mhm.
been 2 years in retirement,
Okay.
and I'm loving it because it's giving me the opportunity to focus on things I want to do
Yeah.
without the stress of a office job, if you will. So
Right.
incorporating that strength training in a way that was not the way I thought of it traditionally, like going to a gym and laying on a bench and
Yeah.
seeing how much I can. It's nothing like that. So
Yeah.
that's the third thing. So between starting with yoga, incorporating hiking and walking, then focusing on nutrition, and now focusing on strength training. I'm kind of bringing it full circle.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's a really good mention because I do think a lot of people share a similar outlook as you did
hmm,
with regarding strength training. You know, they think it's in the gym. They think it's like, you know, they're thinking like Arnold Schwarzenegger and his buddies lifting weights, and that's the only way to work out at the gym.
yeah,
And yeah, that's just, you know, that's just, it's not true. There's so many different ways to strength train, and it is one of, if not the best things that you can do exercise
yeah,
wise for, you know, your body in terms. I mean, building muscle has so many benefits. It's not just aesthetic, it's also it's functional, but
hmm,
even beyond functional, it also helps with fighting aging. I mean, it helps with mental cognition. It helps you be more resilient to injury, and even to disease, helps you recover more quickly from getting sick. So there's so many benefits to strength training, and it's great that you've been now exposed to weight training in a way, resistance training in a way that, you know, that isn't what you know, perceived it to be originally. So,
right. And
um,
the one thing that my trainer told me, and he said this was, he goes, Steve, I noticed this from the get go. You're probably one of the only people that I have seen come in from scratch who has amazing posture for the positions. I'm always having to tell people in the class, don't hunch over, strengthen your pull your shoulders back, lengthen your back. He
mhm.
goes, I've never seen someone who is so focused on correct positioning without me having to teach it. Where did that come from? And then he said, you do yoga, don't you? And I was like, yeah, I do. And I told him about the program. And I said, he goes, it's clear. He goes, you purposefully focus on proper position, which is only going to benefit you with this strength and resistance training.
Mhm.
So having that background, he said, was amazing. He goes, I never have to correct you on your posture. Um, he goes, the only thing I want you to do is start increasing the weights that you're using.
Yeah.
Which I am now. I'm tracking it because that's in my mind. That's the best way to do it. He goes, okay, well, if I was doing butterfly presses with a 10-pound weight. Well, let me try a 12-pound.
Yeah.
So things like that. So tweaking it like that. But he goes, at least from a posture position, at least you're not hurting your body, you're not causing injury. Your training that you've had with yoga has enabled you to incorporate the proper positions
Mm.
when you're doing your strength and resistance.
Yeah. That's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So let's move on to those rapid fire questions. So, and these are what I ask everyone on the Better Man podcast. But I want to ask you, what do you think is one habit, belief, or mindset that has helped you the most? And since we've been talking about fitness, in terms of your overall health and wellness.
One thing I do recently, I do a lot of, and I do it in the morning while I'm having my coffee. I do what I'll call brain puzzles. So whether
Hmm.
it's, and I'm not promoting any of these at all, I'll just throw them out there. Things like Wordle and
Mm-hmm.
connections and strands. These are all like New York Times puzzles. Again, not promoting it. I'm just saying I do things in the morning to get my brain synapses fired up.
Yeah.
So I'll spend 10, 15 minutes every single day doing something to fire my brain up.
Hmm. Okay. Cool. What's one thing that you do for your health that you think is overlooked or undervalued by others?
I said it before. What I said before is the journey. Don't focus
Mm.
on looking for immediate results. Really take your time and follow the journey. The journey will bring you so much more satisfaction.
Mm. Yeah. What's the most stressful part of your life right now?
Um, Most stressful part right now. I hesitate because I would normally say my work, but I'm not working right now. And I shouldn't say that because I'm working with my partner's. He has an estate sales business. So I run all the finances. I balance the books. I handle all of the accounting, the
Okay.
taxes, all the stuff that they don't like to do. So there's stresses that come with that. Making sure there's enough business in the pipeline, things of that nature. So I would say, yeah, it's even the part time work that I'm doing on the side can be stressful.
Okay. What do you think is the biggest challenge right now in your fitness?
Um, Getting more results from my strength training. Not again, not looking at numbers, but I just want to feel better. I am feeling better. I just
Mhm.
want to feel more better, if that's a proper term.
Yeah.
So
How long have you been
I
doing
want
it
to,
for?
yeah, I want to up the game. I'm sorry.
How long have you been doing it for?
Oh, the strength training since
Mhm.
this March, so 6, 7 months.
Okay.
So I know I'm at the very beginning of my journey, and a lot of the guys in my class have been doing this for 5 or 6 years.
Mhm.
So I just need to be patient. I need to listen to my own advice and look at it as a journey,
Yeah.
but not get discouraged. So
Gotcha. Um, and then last question here. What's your best piece of advice for men who want to be healthier?
my best piece of advice is look at it holistically from both a nutritional perspective, a weight perspective, and a muscle building perspective,
Hmm.
and look at it from the journey. I know I keep harping on that, but there's
Yeah.
so many people who just want to see it. We live in a world where you just want to see it, you want instant gratification, instant satisfaction. You
Right.
can't look at your overall life health in that way. You have to look at it as a journey. Take small steps, those will turn into bigger steps. Um, and the longer you do it, the less discouraged you'll become. And as you start to feel better and see results and just have more mind clarity, be at more ease, get a better night's sleep, all of those things come with a journey. So just focus on the journey.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, that's great. Steve, thank you for being my guinea pig for this new round of Better Man podcast interviews with our guys from within the Manful Yoga community. That was great. Thank you.
Yeah, hope it helps. I was happy to do it and was glad seeing you and chatting with you again.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll end it there. Do you want to be found on LinkedIn? You probably don't. So,
I'm there, and I do look at it, and I do have the word retired as the first word in my but I work in a very niche industry, and so I'm there. So feel free to reach out from that.
cool.
I do go on there a couple times a week.
Okay, sweet. Well, I'll put that in here in case people want to reach out,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
they can find you in the. You're active in the Facebook group.
Yes, I am definitely in the Facebook group, so that's another way to get a hold of me as well.
Cool. So
But
that's
happy
the
happy to
Manful
chat with
Yoga.
anyone or give anyone any perspectives if they want to reach out.
Cool. I appreciate that. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. I hope you found this useful, and then tune in for more. We're going to be doing more of these member interviews over the next few weeks and beyond. Hope this inspires you to be a better man. See you on the next episode.